Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this new live session about renting in France and specifically in the French Riviera. I'm going to try to answer all of your questions. We're going to wait a little bit for people to connect. Um, in the meantime, you can say hello in the chat. Maybe tell me where you're connecting from. I'll be glad to learn where you're from, where you're living, and so today we'll answer about any questions you have about renting in France and more specifically in the French Riviera. So I have questions already that I received by email also that I will answer today, and I hope that you'll get a lot of information and full insights in this session. So we're going to wait a little bit. It's just 7:00, 19:00. So we'll wait a couple of minutes, see if some more people are connecting. Welcome, 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 welcome. Again, feel free to use the chat to say who you are, where you're connecting from. It would be nice to know. And I see there are already some people connecting. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today, greetings from California. Hello, hello, California. Hope you have a good weather, as we have now here too. It was a bit cold for May actually recently, but today was a very first day of like hot weather, so that was good. Summer is coming finally. We had a kind of a cold wave in the last week, which was very surprising for a month of May. Anyway. So welcome, welcome. As I was saying, today we will. It's a session about renting. All the information you want to have about renting in the French Riviera. So if you have questions, again, please feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. I have already some questions that I got by email, and I will go through those questions also. But if you have direct questions, use the chat. Just give a couple of minutes. The session will last. Well, I don't really have a time schedule. We can normally 1 hour, but if it's more, it's more. So no problem at all. You're having a great weather in California. All right, good. Good to hear that. Bonjour from Arizona. Looking to move there first of the year. Oh wow, January 1st. Okay. Excellent. Welcome. Cat, that's for Catty probably, so welcome. Nice to have you on board. All right, so maybe I think we can start and people will join and I will probably greet people as they come in. So if you have questions again, you can use the chat and ask your questions. Today, again, so the session is about renting in France and more specifically in the French Riviera. So I'm going to try to be as clear as possible and answer your questions, and so that you can leave this session with a lot of information about renting here. So I had a first question from Tracy from Virginia. Hi, Tracy, and the question I had was, I heard it was very difficult to rent in Nice. What's the true story? Okay, that's a good question because we have a lot of people that think the same. And so I don't want to start with a negative impression, but it's hard. Okay, it's hard to rent in France, it's hard to rent in the French Riviera, but it's feasible, and I will explain why. So why is it hard to? So hello to the newcomers. Welcome. So we're talking about if it's difficult to rent in Nice and the French Riviera. So yes, it is difficult, but it's feasible. And so the why it is difficult, because in the French Riviera, first of all, you have a lot of apartments that were turned into Airbnbs and short-term rentals. So let's say that in the past 5-6 years, we've lost 60% of the long-term inventory. So that's a lot. Okay, so we have a limited inventory in the long-term rentals, and so that's the first cause. The second cause is that out of these apartments who are on the long-term rental market, the expats don't have access to all of the apartments. Why? Because there is just try to be clear here. So there is in France, the tenant is very protected. I would say even overprotected. Okay, so what happened is that the landlords take insurances, to make sure that they get the rent paid if the tenant doesn't pay the rent anymore. And those insurances that insure those landlords, they say, okay, we'll insure you, but we want a French dosier, like a French with a French working contract, okay, CDI, what we call here, and so they will refuse expats because they don't have that kind of contract. Okay, so that narrows down the number of available apartments to less availability. So you probably have, I would say that generally speaking, I'll say that you have access to not even half of the market for expats. Okay, so that's something to consider. But again, it's feasible. We'll see after in the questions probably, or we'll explain further on, but that's feasible, but it's difficult. So bear in mind that when the rental market here is again, it's not, first of all, you don't have rental condominiums where you have a full condominium rentals. The offer is very scarce in all the city, in different buildings, in multiple agencies. So it's specific market and situation. So yeah. Looking to move here, there, end of 2027. I would like to work with you. Wow, thank you. I will put the contact links in the chat just after. So if you have any questions again, you can ask them in the chat. I'll be pleased to answer them. So. But again, I don't want to sound too negative about what I just said. It's feasible. We have a good success in what we do, but again, it's there is some. I mean, you have to be ready to be flexible. That's very important. Although we always find good apartments, but you need to be flexible to be able to get a good result. Okay. Had another question. Hey, I love the channel. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I'm planning a move to Nice from California. Another from California. I keep hearing about this legendary dossier. Yeah, we just talked about it. Required for renting. What exactly needs to go into it for an American, especially since we don't have French tax returns or a French guarantor? Okay, very good question. Okay, so. Again, the dossier seems a little bit terrifying, but it's not. Basically, in the dossier, you need to provide proof of renting, proof of income, of course, and that's when your ID, of course, things like that. But most of all, proof of income. So, but the dossier. I mean, you can build up a very nice dossier. It won't be enough, again, because the agencies here and the landlords are a bit scared of expats because they think that they won't be able to get their money if there's a problem. Okay, so what I suggest, what we tell our clients, and we help them with that, is to work with a guarantee, which is a guarantor company, French guarantor company. And they're very good because they will take into consideration the income, the revenue, but also the savings. Okay, so basically, and they will issue a certificate. Okay, saying okay, we can guarantee the rent up to 2,000, 6,000, etc. And that's a very good document to have because it opens more door. Although some agencies would still refuse the document because of what I talked before about the French insurances that some landlords take that would even refuse a guarantee. but still it opens more door. Okay, it's very difficult to go to an agency or private with just the dossier and not that certificate and trying to pass. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very hard. Okay, so again, so yeah, just the dossier is not so complicated. Just proofs of income and situation. Okay, and then we have our little tricks to make the dossier look good. Also, I will explain after with pleasure. But again, what exactly needs to go into it? Yeah, so mainly, as I said, proof of income, your ID, proof of savings, everything that can prove the money you have. That's it, basically. So, two questions I had from Mary and Bill from, I don't know, not specified. So, we're looking to rent a place in Antibes. The landlord is asking for a guarantor who lives and pays taxes in France. We don't know anyone. Is this a deal breaker or are there ways around it? So, yeah, well, just answer, I think, to that question. So, yes, there are ways around it. And this is what I just explained. So, it's if you can use guarantee, for example, this will replace a garant, as we call here. So, of course, that you probably don't know anyone in France who can help. So that's why we use guarantee. Just one thing, guarantee has a cost. It's 5% of the monthly rent, okay, to be paid upfront according to the duration of the lease. So, for example, if you have a lease of 1 year, then you would have to pay 5% of the monthly rent for the 12 months upfront. Okay, so that's something important also to know. The total cost, I would say, when you rent a place. So I think I had a question about that, about the cost and the agency fees. So let's say that you have different costs involved. So the first one is the agency fees. Okay, the rental agency fees. So there are in Nice and most cities of the French Riviera, they are regulated because we are in what is called the tense zone. Tense because the market is tense because there's a lot of demand and only low offer. So there are some areas in France that have been determined by the government as tense zones, and therefore the agency fees are regulated. So in Nice, for example, it's 10 euros per square meter for the agency fees for the tenant to the tenants, and 3 euros for the inventory fees. We have inventory fees to do the inventory of the apartment. So in total, it's 13 euros per square meter. Okay, and this is by law. So if you see an agency that puts any other figure that is not following the rules, it's outlaw. Okay, so don't sign the lease. Okay. Hello from Bristol. Hello, hi Thomas. Welcome on board. So yeah, so first you have to consider the agency fee. So for example, for a 60 square meter apartment, it would be 780 euros. So 600 euros for the agency fees and 3 euros for the inventory per square meter. So that's 180. So it would be 780 total euros. Okay. Then you have other costs to consider. On top of the agency fees, you would have the guarantee deposit. So the guarantee deposit, it's 1 or 2 months of rent. Generally, it's always 2 months of rent. Okay, so that's good to know. And then you have to pay, of course, the first month of rent immediately when you sign the lease. Okay, and then if you use guarantee, then you have to pay guarantee. So, for example, for a lease of 2,000 euros here, I made an example. I cannot share my screen on. Yes, can I share my screen? Yes, I can share my screen. Oh, discovering. Sorry, with YouTube. So hold on just a second. I have to. Oops. No, working. Not working. Not working. Okay. Well, I'll have to check on that for the next session. Okay, but so the for a 2,000 rent, for example, the guarantee fees would be about 1,200 euros. So let's say that for a 60 square meter apartment with a rent of 2,000 euros, you have to be ready to have in the bank about 10,000 euros that you would spend when signing the lease. Okay, so that's important to know that it's not just the rent. There are some more costs associated to the rent. Okay, so that's yeah, that's good, important to know. So it helps you to budget your expenses. Um, any questions? So the other question I had was, please feel free to ask. There are new people joining, so please feel free to ask your questions in the welcome, first of all, of course, and please feel free to ask your questions on the chat. I had another question, so about the état des lieux. That was from Tracy and yeah, so from Mary and Bill. Also, what is the état des lieux and how strict is it? I've read horror stories of expats losing their entire deposit over tiny scratches on the wall when moving out their apartment in Menton. Okay. So the inventory. So basically, when you enter the property before signing the lease, there is an inventory that is done. So basically, you go with the agency, and if you work with us also, and we and the listing agency, the rental agency. Sorry, they will do an inventory of the condition of the apartment when renting out the apartment. Okay, so one very important thing to understand is that in France, apartments are rent as such. So let's say that some apartments might have some scratches from the previous owner. Okay, normally if the landlord is a good landlord, they would renovate the apartment or repaint it, etc. But sometimes you can, if the apartment is in good condition, they will rent it out the way it is, but it might have still some little scratches or things from the previous tenant. So it's very important that the agency documents all of this in the inventory. So normally they have now special apps where they take pictures of everything and they write everything down. Anyway, when you do the inventory, after the inventory, you have 1 week to report to the agency, and we help with that also, but you have 1 week to report to the agency anything that you've seen after the inventory was done, and that's not in inventory, to add it in the inventory. So this is supposed to protect you when you leave, and you make an out inventory, so like working out of the apartment inventory, and which is compared to the inventory that you did when getting in. And if there are deteriorations of the apartment, yes, that will be taken off the deposit that you give in at the beginning. Okay. If the agency is honest and serious, they will only take out what's really involved. Like, okay, maybe have to repaint the wall because the kids have drawn on the wall. So then yeah, they will have to take it out of the deposit. But in order to avoid any problem, it's very important that the inventory is done correctly when getting in the apartment. Okay, that's super important. Very honestly, I have not seen terrible stories of all the deposit being taken, etc. Okay, but for that you need to be sure again that the inventory is well done. So I have a question from Tom Higgins in the chat. If I'm planning to move to Nice in January 2029 and planning on being able to stay in an Airbnb for at least 3 months, how far in advance should I contact you to find a long-term rental? Okay, hi Tom, welcome. I'm planning to move Nice in January 29. Able to stay in Airbnb for at least 3 months. How far in advance should I contact you for a long-term rental? So it's good that you contact us before. I mean that we start working together even before coming here. Like not too way in advance, not too long before, because otherwise the apartments that are in the market will be gone by the time you arrive. But like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, we can start doing all the paperwork, of course, first preparing your dossier, etc., and then start searching so that immediately when you arrive, then we have already some properties to see and some apartments to check with you. So I would say that 2-3 weeks before you come here, let's say a month before you come here, you contact us and we start the procedure. Okay. Any other questions? So had a Terry that was asking about security deposit. Oh, well, we just answered that about security deposit and upfront cost that you should expect, which we just talked about that before. I've heard rumors about habitation habitation tax, tax d'habitation, and high agency fees. So high agency fees, no, I answered before. So if it's 10 euros again and 3 euros, so 13 euros per square meter. So anything above that in the region here, I'm not talking about that elsewhere in France, but in Nice and most cities of the Riviera, anything above that, it's illegal, okay? And the habitation tax, taxe d'habitation, so it's only for secondary residences. So if it's your main residence here that you're going to rent, then there is no taxe d'habitation. It has been suppressed in France, I think, 4 or 5 years ago for primary residence, so you won't have to pay it. Thank you, Tom. So just thumb up in the chat. So yeah, no. So taxe d'habitation, no. If it's your primary residence, okay. Can you explain the difference between renting a furnished versus unfurnished apartment in France? That's from William and Catherine. Is it true that it's much easier for a landlord to kick you out of a furnished place? Okay. Oh, very good question. Wow, that's a hard one. Okay, so difference between furnished and unfurnished. Well, first of all, furnished by law, supposed to have a table, a bed, and a kitchen, basically. That's it, and 4 chairs. Okay, so the definition is kind of not very precise. But the main difference it's in the length of the lease. So normally for a rental, for a furnished apartment, the lease is 1 year, and for an unfurnished apartment is 3 years. Okay. One of the main difference also was the notice that the tenant had to give to move out the apartment. Before it was 3 months for a non-furnished apartment and 1 month for a furnished apartment, but now it's the same here because it's again for the 10th zone problem. They've reduced the notice for unfurnished apartment to 1 month. Okay, so basically it's the same. So the main difference is the 3 years lease for an unfurnished apartment. Is it much easier to a landlord to kick you out of a furnished place? No. It's as difficult as for an unfurnished place. So in France, as I said before at the beginning, tenants are super protected, even overprotected. So you don't risk to be chased out of the apartment. There's I mean, if you want to get rid even of a tenant that even doesn't pay the rent, it's super hard. It takes like a year to 3 years to get rid of a tenant because of the protection they have. There's winter truce where you cannot put someone out of your apartment during the winter. If you have someone over 65 years old and you want to put him out, then you have to find him or her the same apartment, same type of apartment, to be sure that they have a place to live. So no, it's not easy in France to get a tenant out of your apartment, even if there's a problem. So don't worry about that. Okay. All right. So what do we have here? We want to rent Peter. We want to rent a villa near Mougins for 6 months while we look for a house to buy. Our short-term lease is a thing in France, or are we forced into a 1-year commitment? No. You have so it depends when you want to come actually. So because there are a lot of villas actually that are rented seasonal. And a lot of apartments too. It's true that you have in winter, it's easier to find 6 to 9 month lease, probably more 6 than 9, but 6 to 9. because most of the villas that are rented on seasonal renting in the summer, they have space. There is space in the winter to find such a rental. So I would say no, you don't have to commit for 1 year. You can find a place for 6 months. We do have a rent and buy service where, with a fast track program, when we have to search the property to buy while staying in a temporary lease of 6 to 9 months. So it's quite not too difficult. Now, if you not sure about the time, if you don't know exactly if you want to stay 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, again, if you sign a 1 year lease, it's not, shouldn't say that, because for the agencies that do the rent, for the rental agencies, it's not very nice, but you can walk out quite easily from a furnished lease and also unfurnished. So as I said before, 1 month's notice. So even if you take 1 year, you can walk out with no reason, just giving the 1 month's notice. So if you're not sure about the time, you can still do a 1 year lease. So yeah. And that's all the questions I had on my side. So if you have any other question, please feel free to ask them now, and I will be very pleased to answer. There you go. Mary. Hello, Mary. How are you? What motivates landlords to rent at all if it's so hard to evict? Do landlords overall have few problems with bad tenants also while renting? Can you help us to find a place? Okay, to buy. Sorry. Good question. What motivates landlords to rent at all if it's so hard to evict? That's a good question, actually. You got me there. It's one kind of investment. People invest in stock options, they invest in different things, and they also invest in real estate. In France, it's kind of common to invest in real estate to rent. But what happened is that a lot of people started investing in seasonal renting for that reason. The first reason, to avoid long-term lease and problems. Otherwise, there's so many people that invest in buying apartments to do seasonal renting. And the second thing is that until now, the law the tax law was more convenient to do short-term rentals than long-term rentals. I mean, there were more benefits in terms of taxes to do short-term rentals than long-term rentals. I think that when the government did that at the time, it was to help the real estate market, to boost the real estate market, and to have more people buying and boost the market. And now they realize that there are too many seasonal renting. So I know that there's a law coming out in the coming days that will change that, and it will be actually better to do long-term rentals for tax reasons. So it will change. But yeah, you're right. It's a good question. Yeah, but again, not all tenants are bad tenants, and there are a lot of people that just can rent normally and without a problem. But yeah, do landlords overall have few problems with bad tenants? Do landlords overall have few problems with bad tenants? I don't understand the question, but as I said, yeah, it can happen that you have bad tenants and some problems. But again, you can, if you're a landlord, there are ways to check the dossier to make sure that you have a good tenant, and that's why we have a good success rate in finding places, because we have good clients with good revenues and good and we've seen in the last. Since we're doing that a lot of agencies now are taking our clients because they know that they're good clients. So yeah, that's why there is a dossier, so you can check. The problem is that sometimes you have people making false dossier, so that's out there also. Yeah. Also, while renting, can you help us to find a place to buy? Yes, that I was speaking just before. So we do. We have a rent and buy program again. So that has two programs. The first program is the fast track program. The second program is the Riviera Bridge program. The fast track, if you rent less 6 to 9 months during that period of time, I'm saying where the apartments are more easily to find in I would call midterm rental in the winter. So that's in between October and May, more or less. Okay, because after they go back to seasonal, and and then you can have you buy a property during that time, or you take 1 year lease or even more. And we also have that's a Riviera Ridge. We also have you can buy during that time. Um, Wondering if it's a bit of a scheme that tenants stop paying. Yeah, like sometimes in the USA, tenants work with the tenants work the system, so you cannot evict. I own rentals in America. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it happens, and it's a problem. Yeah, because as I said before, as they overprotected, it is a problem when you have someone not paying the rent. Okay, so that's why it's good to have insurances. And for example, that's why also now we with GuarantMe, for example, GuarantMe they issue that certificate, but they also act as a guarantor. And I know because I was told so by an agency that they pay immediately, so that if there's a failure in rent paying, GuarantMe takes over immediately. So they're very serious, and that's very good for landlords. So. Um, the problem is not so much getting the rent paid if you have insurances. The problem is to get rid of the tenant if he's not paying. So that's the thing. But there's another problem here in France, which is the squatters, and that you can also. It's difficult to put squatters out of your house. Okay, so. Um, can you rent without seeing it in person? And can you do a video walk through a potential apartment so we can view it from the USA and then move forward? Yes, we can. Of course, we do that for buyers and we do that for renters also. We do video tours, no problem at all. And everything can be done online and at distance, no problem at all. Yeah, we can do that. You have to trust us, of course, but we can do that. Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, this one, we will do some other ones, sessions. So we will alternate sessions on buying and renting. So if by any chance you don't have a question now, but you have it later, there will be other sessions. So we're having now we're having a YouTube live session every month, and again on different. It will be renting, buying. Maybe we will add some other topics later on, but yeah, once every month, and I answer all the questions. All right, let me check if I had another question here. No. I missed the first half. Will the replay be available? Yes. It will be in our YouTube channel in the live sessions. It's there. It's kept in the YouTube in our YouTube channel. Yeah. Taking out. No. I think I did all the questions. All right. So if there's no more questions, I'll give you maybe 1 minute if you have another question. Otherwise, I'll see you probably maybe the next month. And was very happy to have you on board. I hope that this has been helpful for you. And thanks for your questions. Thanks for your kind comments in the chat. And I look forward to meeting you when you're here. All right. Thank you for attending, and have a good day or evening, depending on when you were connecting. Thank you.